Welcome to the Censinet Healthcare Cybersecurity Benchmarking Study webinar. I am Ed Gaudet, the CEO and founder of Censinet, and I will be your host today. And I am pleased to be joined by an esteemed panel of cybersecurity and risk management professionals. James Case, the VP and Chief Information Security Officer from Baptist Health in Jacksonville, Florida. Welcome, James.
Thank you.
Kevin St. Laurent, Executive Director of Information Security and Compliance at Indiana University Health. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you.
Jennifer Coriel, the Information Services Manager for Indiana University Health. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you very much.
And Ryan Kolzak, the Chief Information Security Officer from Valley View. Did I get that? Did I pronounce that right, Ryan?
Yep, you did.
Yeah. It reminds me of a show I used to watch when I was a kid, the Kolzak, the Night Stalker. Does anyone remember that?
No. Actually, I have heard that before. So yes.
Okay. Okay. Darren McGavin was the actor. It was a great show. Okay. Well, let's get into it. We've got a lot to cover. And before we jump into it, I'd just love to thank our sponsors of the cybersecurity benchmarking study. Obviously, Censinet works with Class Research to collect the data, and Class does all of the analysis of the data. And we work in conjunction with the American Hospital Association, Health ISAC, the Health Sector Coordinating Council, HSCC, and as well as we've just added the Scottsdale Institute this year, which we're pleased to have join the cohort of sponsors. And so, as we think about value for benchmarking, we ran a study about 2 years ago that identified a couple of value points, but would love to really get a sense for your individual reasons for joining the study and some of the high-level value points that you've been received as being a participant. And maybe we'll start with Ryan.
Right. Where we joined here is helping with the prioritization and the road mapping, right? So that was the big thing for us. Is our roadmap is always, our risk assessment has always been based on, the impact, more to say, right? The frequency of an event, right? But with the council and staring at everything else here, is we started looking at this at a different level, and we were starting to see like where our programs weren't strong enough, where they were adequately, sufficiently resourced, and where we needed to make additional investments. And that influenced our roadmap more than just our security risk assessment. The roadmap always addressed the top priority, but we also needed to add in elements that we needed to meet the CPGs.
Excellent.
Right. But all right, I'll just slightly going on that, it was also fantastic to see our like peers, what they were doing, right? To know that our investment was sufficient or, in some places low.
Excellent. Kevin, Jennifer?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think I'll go first on this. I think what Ryan brought forward on roadmaps and risk is definitely a truth in the findings. But it's also really interesting to see, like you said, where are your weaknesses, and it's interesting. I know we're probably in our third year with Censinet, and it's been interesting to watch it mature, and see what how we're actually being able to grow in our environments. And I think at one level, data-driven decisions is always a factor for our C-suite, and they want to know exactly where we're at and where we're headed. And when we're able to give these type of reports to them, I think they come off with a better sense of who we are and how we're handling things. That's why, and I think, and then when we're able to actually look at our comparisons with other health systems our size, that's a big factor. Especially our C-suite comes in really strong with, yes, everybody wants to be as best as you can or as good as you can, but at the same time, you want to be sure that you're covering the gaps and not missing anything. And what we also are able to get to kind of rectify from these findings are the fact that we find out that other health systems are having the same problems, right? So then you ask yourself, well, is the investment coming across the board from everybody? And it probably is, because everybody's fighting the same battle. So I think that, at the end of the day, this has been the value of your system has been outstanding for us. Jen,
Excellent.
Would you have anything to say on that?
Yeah, just tying back to what Kevin said, the benefit of looking at this assessment in conjunction with the assessments that we run on an annual basis in the network, it validates the work that we're doing but it also gives us the impetus to go back to the C-suite and say, we need resources here, or we need resources there. Can we shift how we fund this? Can we shift how we fund that? And I think those are strong points when you look at, especially the financial situation that most healthcare facilities are in these days. I think this information gives us some leverage when we come back and say, we need help, or you're doing great.
Excellent. And how about you, James?
I mean, so awesome answer so far. I think the only thing I would add would be for, C-suite was mentioned, but how about board presentations, right? So in board meetings, whenever I talk about where we are in our, journey on like NIST CSF, right? It's, there are often questions about, well, how do we compare to others? And so it's, having that information to me is vital.
Excellent.
Very good point, James. Like I said, I was going to say that too. Yes, it does rifle through our board pretty heavy. So yeah, everybody wants to know at that level for sure.
And Ryan, do you use it with your board as well?
My board members absolutely want to know that what the spending is both effective, right, and in line with where our peers are, right? So they need to know that we're not deficient, but they also do not want to be overspending also. And this gives me a great position to say where we are.
Excellent. And then, James, we'll start with you this time. Anything you identified through the survey that may have changed your earlier assumptions that you had about a particular area maybe gap?
Not yet, because we just completed it. So really, I'm looking forward to sinking, my teeth into it over the next month. So.
Okay. How about you, Ryan?
Oh, I always felt my email program was stronger than it was, but you start really digging in and you miss that, and you're like, oh, right, there's my number one vector, and I thought I was an A grade, and I'm actually a C. Like we can do better, right? And it gave us a way to reassess the technology that we had always in our risk assessment just listed as, yep, check, control in place, right? But to actually deep dive into it and make sure that the technologies were all in place.
Excellent. How about you, Kevin and Jennifer?
Yeah, like I said, I probably would, like I said, once again, since we're a little bit deeper into the process with you, looking at the maturities, right? I think that's where it's our biggest game is, and seeing how year over year we're advancing, and being able to make changes that we've been able to apply from the previous years, right? So we've been able to say, yeah, okay, you brought up a good point with email on that, Ryan, that, we went back and reassessed some things after that and found that we had some deficiencies that we were able to clear up year 2, right? And then by year 3, we're showing that actual that upward trend. So that's what I think, the maturity piece of this is what is the biggest value that we're gaining from it.
Excellent.
Thanks, Kevin. Rephrasing this slightly for me, what I just mentioned, though, is when we go list our controls against the risk, right, it's just a effective or not effective. This allowed me to really dial in and say how effective.
Good point.
And are you also doing out-of-band maturity as well? Are you looking at capturing the maturity of your overall program?
Yes, for me. NIST CSF is one key way that we track maturity. Where are we on that journey? What's the priorities next? Where we have the largest gaps, and as far as focusing.
Yeah. So use the tier model that's in NIST CSF to sort of plot your maturity. Okay. Anybody else use that?
Yeah, we use the same thing. We also use the SRA OCR type work with our HIPAA security to test it also. Jen can probably speak to that from that program side.
Got it.
Yeah.
And I come to you guys.
Right. I'm a little bit weaker. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Oh, sorry about that. I come to you guys from a little bit of a different level. I'm a manager, so I'm still down in the trenches with my people. So it's interesting for me to watch year over year the ebb and flow. When you think of maturity, you would hope it would be linear, but it's not. And sometimes that's people-based as opposed to technology-based. If you have a new director or a new supervisor, they may not be as cognizant of the policies and procedures in place, and that can affect your scores. So it's interesting for me when we see the scores, how to dig in and learn what the true value of that score is. So for our purposes, with year 3 of the assessment, it's been interesting to go back and dig in, see who did what, and how it impacted the overall maturity scores.
Excellent point. Anybody else apply that?
It's as a rural healthcare, I'm saying a little bit more entry on that for that measurement, right? Because we're just so much, as Jennifer's mentioned, it's kind of like in the trenches. right? Those policies and procedures are weaker, and it gives me that line to be able to at least know where we're at and what comes next.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And Jennifer made me think of one thing about the ebb and flow, and like NIST 2.0 coming out as far as CSF, right? So that sort of resets us a little bit, right? So we were doing well with 1.1, and now with 2, we have a little bit of a reset there, and so it's so to me that's part of the ebb and flow as well. So.
Yeah, that's a great point and a good setup to the next set of questions. So, as you think about the change from 1.1 to 2.0, do you leverage the findings aspect of the benchmarks where not only are we sort of identifying where you are, but also offering up recommendations of things to do? Do you leverage that piece of the capabilities as well?
Yeah, I found the guidance, like each of the questions had guidance. And so I found those helpful and we certainly captured notes out of there and key action items out of there to help us steer or to help confirm how we are compliant or how, meeting that, that control. But yeah, so that certainly helped with the planning.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I would agree with James on that. I think, a lot of it is just being able to see it and then dig into it. But yeah, I'm totally same thought process.
It has saved me from overinvestment, right? Because it lists some of those things that are good for small business and others that are large, right? And I read about all those things that are large, but it keeps reminding me here of where the investment needs to go first.
Right.
Oh, that's a good point. And so did any of the data actually change your investment profile where you may have made an assumption about a particular area of spend and you changed it based on the data? Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you tell maybe the story around that or?
Let's see here. How do I phrase it without, getting myself into too much trouble?
Yeah.
Zero trust is a very wonderful concept. And when your network has, started flat, right, and is really, has migrated, but it's not perfect yet, right? Some of those are just VLAN separation and not exactly firewall separation. When you talk zero trust and you put that on the roadmap and you recognize just how far that is away. Right. Like, why am I putting the resources into, finding a vendor and building a project plan when I have to do, email security, right? Other things first. So
helps drive the priorities.
Yeah, there's a finite amount of resources and it's a matter of doing the right thing. Right. So, eyes on the prize.
Yep.
And I think a lot of it too comes down to the size of your system, right? So, I mean, if we've got smaller systems versus large systems, I mean, we're sitting with a almost 40,000 population. It's very interesting to try to see trending and then try to make sure we're following that based on the size. So, at the same time, we fight a lot of those battles. Like you said, I mean, Jen was mentioning kind of being in the trenches and watching how things are happening on those lower levels. But like I said, when we're trying to run this across a large network, it ends up being very interesting. But the data that we're getting out of this is what is being able to drive all those decisions, and that's what's real key to what we're getting out of this. So, excellent.
And how about in the trenches, Jen? Jennifer, any insights you can share?
Yeah, and feel free to call me Jen.
Okay,
that's what I go by. For me, it's interesting because I get to see a little bit of both worlds. Of course, Kevin is my executive director. So his involvement in the central portion and in the integral portion of the policies and procedures, he feeds me that information. And then to see what is communicated out to our regions and how well it's communicated out. Because if there's a specific policy or control in place, how well is that communicated out? So some of what I find is our gaps may merely be communication. How do we communicate this information out? Again, with as many people as we have in the network, we have turnover like everyone else. So where are you at in your career with IU Health? If you're helping me with this assessment and you've only got 3 months under your belt, I'm going to expect a low score this year, whereas your vertical may have had a better score last year. So those little things are what have to come into play also. So as we look at the scores, we have to look at it from, the 10,000 foot level, where sometimes people want us to be down to the minute level, and that's not always an accurate picture for us.
Yeah, and I think kind of what you get to out of these assessments, a lot of times you're thinking to yourself, should we be a 5? Should we be a 3? Should we be a 1? And and the board always wants you to be a 5, right? Of course, we need to be perfect. But in the reality, most of us are probably 2s and 3s at best, right? But we have to understand that, especially with the size of networks and what we're trying to achieve. So I think these type of assessments really bring that to light, and it really helps. Like I said, it helps digest that information when you're looking at the big picture.
Excellent. Any other comments on that? Jen, I think you brought a point up that I want to explore. So, are folks using the assessment? Are folks assessing one department and or location, or using it across a couple of different hospitals within your health system, a couple different locations? Are you using it centrally, or are you distributing and then aggregating the data?
It depends on the assessment. So the NIST assessment is done as a global. Our security risk assessment, of course, following the OCR guidelines, is done by vertical. So there are several hundred of those that go out. So it depends on the assessment. And what I find interesting is that regardless of the number of members in the audience, our scores are pretty consistent.
Yeah, that's
so
what I was
that
going to
gives
say.
me great confidence in the network.
That's what I was going to say. Definitely. From that standpoint, this particular the NIST assessment is a centralized assessment. All of our other assessments could be completely broken out regionally and everything else. But what we like to do then is, like I said, take all that data, accumulate it, tie it back, and see are we still matching? And we really are. So that shows us a perfect system in a way that we're checking ourselves about checks and balances across the system as far as our assessments go.
Got it. Anyone else have anything to add on that, James or Ryan?
No.
Covered it.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Good. Let me just go to the next slide here. We talked about the board performance, communicating the performance at a board level. What are some of the surprises you may have experienced once you had the data and you were able to use it at a board level? Anything that you didn't expect from the board in terms of a response, or did it facilitate a type of discussion that you didn't expect otherwise? And so that's the first question. The other question is, how are you applying the data? Are you also applying it to your cyber insurance packs, your bond ratings, in maybe any other external data sets? Who wants to go first?
I'll go.
Okay, James.
So board, I would say it didn't create any extra questions. I would say it answered the questions before they were asked, really, because it provides that validation confirmation that the investment, and what we're doing is working, and that we're on par or we're better in some areas. So I would say that's really where that kind of showed for me.
Mm-hmm.
What was the second part again? I already forgot.
Just in terms of how you're using the data to, again, help the board respond to maybe cyber insurance.
Cyber insurance. That's right. Sorry.
Packs.
I did not this year. And one thing I did do, and I think I've shared this with you, that I create a packet of here's what you didn't ask, for my cyber insurance carriers, right? And it's 19 pages this year of and I talk about NIST CSF and our whole maturity where we are, but I didn't include this. So I think that's a great idea for me to include, right? So thank you for raising that up.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anyone else, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's a good point. Our board's kind of unique. We have our global board and we have smaller boards, right? So basically, our global board loves to see this data because they're outside the system looking in, and then we got more of the internal boards that are really kind of digesting this information day to day. The best part about it is we've really gained a lot of trust with our board from our cybersecurity program. We're a very tight knit in that situation. So people really trust what we're saying. And we've been able to prove that. So our data and all of these things have really gained a lot of respect, so that but the other part of Censinet is the ability to see it against other health systems, right? This is probably the largest value add. So that's why we want to participate in this, because at the end of the day, the board loves to see how we're doing with the other systems. And as much as you hate to say it's a competition thing, it is a little bit of a want your guy. You always want to look like you're shining on the top, right? But no, I feel like at the same time, and as far as like, with our cybersecurity insurance, yes, we bring this stuff to them all the time. So we work with all of our insurance about this. We make sure that they understand where we're at. And like I said, as long as you've got a good buy-in from your board and your C-suite on what's happening, I feel like that's what these just enhance that experience.
Excellent.
From my standpoint.
And Ryan?
It allowed me to, so the difference here on screen, right? If, the difference between the gaps in each of those access areas, right, was where I was able to lean right in and demonstrate the areas that I needed additional funding in, right? Because this is where we're weaker. Because us security guys, right, we're also prone to be able to say, and like on this graph, if you look, just draw the line over it like 80%. We're going to tell you like, oh, it's not perfect anywhere. And here's this exaggerated budget that I would like, and then I settle for a lower number, right? This allowed me to start the conversation just to be able to say, look, nobody's at a 90, right? But my largest gaps to be all like my peers at the same ranked size as my org. I need to invest in technology 1 and technology 2, and I'm asking for additional investment here. But it also says, and by the way, in the other 8 areas that you've already authorized for, we are being effective, right? Your risk is being managed. The team is doing quality work. It shows them where their money went, not only what I'm asking for, but where it went.
Very good point, Ryan. And you kind of hit it on the head too, because if you do have 1 or 2 areas that are really dropping down in that scale, that's a question they raise back to us. Then they say, okay, hold on, what's going on here, and what can we do to help? And that's kind of where I'm hoping that you facilitate those conversations, so that basically that's where the money does come, right? And with a good explanation, you say, well, look how we're doing so well and everything else. And then they say, well, that means the resources and the money is flowing correct into those. So let's just add a little bit to this and see where we're at next year, which is what we've been able to do. Where we've had some of those gaps where we've said, okay, year 1, 2, and then we've changed some things and modified some resources and funding, and then we've been able to bring those up the next year, which is why, like I said, at the end of the year, at the end of the conversation, it basically brings us to the close of everybody likes what we're seeing. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want to see maturity, we want to see growth, and they want to see that their money's being used in a way that's making a difference.
Yeah, excellent. Jen?
I defer to Kevin. I stay out of the board conversations as much as I possibly can.
Okay. All right. Let's go and explore something you mentioned earlier that I really liked. I want to sort of tease it apart a little bit. You talked about trends. You talked about connecting those trends with, team performance, I guess, if you will. And so are you using the data in a way also to show over time where the team has been effective and showing progress, and also tying it back to the team? Hey, we made progress over the last year. We closed these gaps, great job. And and actually you're going one step further and feeding it into any performance review conversations you're having.
Is that coming at me?
Yeah. We'll start there. Yeah.
So it truly does. To go to Ryan's point, when you go to the board and Kevin does that work for us and says, hey, we're doing great here, we need some more resources here, it's a bit of a validation. We spend a lot of money on security, and there are instances out there where people don't understand why the budget is what it is for security. Mm-hmm. But this gives us the validation to say, listen, we're protecting your patient data to the best of our ability. We can do better with this. So when we come back to the teams, it is a good way for us to go and say, you've done a great job here. Help us come up here, or can we shift a bit to this focus? So it does help us drive future plans and roadmaps for future work for the teams. It also helps us drive where our resources are going to go. We found ourselves at a point where the program outgrew the available resources. We were able to go back and say, we're drowning. And they came back and they graciously gave us the resources. So it's going to be exciting to see where the growth comes from that. So I like these type of tools because it gives me something concrete to go back and say, I need, as opposed to just, I want.
And one thing I'll add, Ed, is performance reviews, right? So we can use this to actually drive it down to like Jen's team level, right? And we can say, yes, we're going to have assignments against this and we want to make sure our performance comes up. So it gives them actually something to perform on, and we can actually judge on that performance review as they're coming due. You know what I mean? Because yes, it does. Because now we can show our team being active, we can show our team growing, and then we can show the team maturing.
Excellent. Others?
I have an annual report out to board members, right? It's for the entirety that is IT, but graphs like this have really helped my security department division, however you'd like to phrase it, to shine well, right? Not only did, the prior points we were all hitting on where it shows you where your gaps might be, it's also demonstrating, financial, responsibility. My blue lines are never too much higher than the olive lines, so to say, right? I'm not wasting money that they've afforded me either, right? So, right, I'm being responsible and effective at the same time, and then we'll, move on to my other teams.
Excellent. James?
As far as your questions for using this in reviews, no, I don't bring this back to the team in that way, but I think that's a cool idea, and it also keeps us all on the same page in that way. And then using it in reviews, I've never done that, but again, that's another good idea. So,
well, I mean, I think we look at it as I don't know, every system has their own goal setting efforts, right? So what we'll do is we'll take some of this information and we'll add it to goals, right? So then that's where the goals tie to performance review. That's how we tie it back. So, because we'll take a section of business and say, well, okay, here's what we should be doing in this section of the business. Maybe it's our emails, maybe it's this, maybe it's my offensive security team, maybe it's this team, whatever. But when we come down and we figure out what that gap is, then that team then will actually put into their goals for their team that we're going to make this, meet this, meet this. And that, like I said, once again, just it gives everybody a driving initiative. That's why I just wanted to clarify how the goals played into performance review, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
excellent. I know we talked a little bit about this slide already, but has anyone leveraged the data in a way to either drive better coverage based on your policy or reduction of premium costs, maybe from an increased perspective, and leverage the data in that way to communicate with the insurer or with the bond rating system in a way that you get a positive outcome? I've talked to customers that have used it in bond rating packs, and they've talked about the value that it provides. I've talked to other customers that said, "Hey, we had a premium increase, but overall it was a lot less than what we saw from our peers, et cetera."
Yeah, and I guess I'll speak to this. Yes, we just this last year, for instance, and I know everybody's probably feeling the same thing, but cybersecurity insurance is just on it going up, right? I mean, we're all paying for it regardless. So you end up saying to yourself, yes, what can this data provide? What can this not lower, but what can this lessen the hit, right? And yes, and basically this has been a big help for us, lessening our hits and actually giving us better premiums.
Okay, excellent. Anyone else?
And I mentioned mine already. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, James.
I mentioned mine already that I didn't include this. I put everything but this in. So I think it's a great point. Like, why didn't I include it? I don't know. I just didn't think, but I put, NIST maturity and a lot of other things, program management, board reporting structure, a whole bunch of things to really show maturity, but not the benchmark. So again, I've already written it down. Like, why didn't I include that? So I will next time.
Okay, excellent. Ryan?
For me, this is future looking, right? I haven't done past, no, I haven't done the bond worthy, but I had every intention of doing it for our cyber liability insurance, right? On this one here, because there's those nice little clauses in there that say that, the policy will be exempt if you have, I'm going to say lied, right? If you have done anything less than honest, right? And to include the results of other, audits, reports, benchmarking, all that extra evidence protects me, right? In that next event that to all of my beliefs, here is the state of the industry accurately as stated.
Excellent. All right, good. So before we end and wrap this up, was there anything that we could add to the overall benchmark study that could help you in any area that we already discussed, whether it be team performance, program performance, leveraging cyber insurance, et cetera, premium reduction or coverage increases, et cetera? Anything, and we'll start with Jen. Is there anything that you would like to see us add or change, or maybe an additional survey, et cetera?
I'll be honest, that's not something I've thought of. So that would take longer than we have right now for me to process and pull some stuff. So I'll defer.
All right. Kevin?
I like I said, Ed, I mean, you guys have really grown this thing. We've watched it mature, like with you as you've grown it. I really like the add of the AI ML stuff this year. That was a big plus. I know, because right now we're spinning up a big AI ML committee. So we got that going. So those type of situations, once again, more data feed from that is a positive for us. Encourage you guys to keep on track with whatever upgrades NIST has, like you've been doing 1 to 2, and as we move on and what's going on. Love those factors that are in there. Because like I said, I feel like at the end of the day, you're putting out a really good package. And Ryan, I totally agree with you with what you said about, when you're able to show them, even from the bond ratings and stuff, other companies that are matching that's more proof positive, right? That way nobody can come back and second guess, is this really true or not, right? When you're giving your information. So I think that was an excellent point you made.
Thank you.
James?
I've got 2 thoughts on my mind on this. One, when I have raised questions and enhanced my ideas, your team has added them, right? So I love that. So I don't have anything today, but along these lines. And then 2, you kind of taking a step back and really looking at this. I love that the assessment, that the benchmarking is really just the assessment, right? We were already doing that anyway, so it was not extra work in any way. So I love that part, that it's 2 birds, 1 stone, tons of value both ways. So anyway.
Excellent. Thank you. Ryan?
As rural health, right, is, our hair is always on fire, right? Not mine because I don't have it, but we keep, we wear multiple hats. Right. And I fear that what we might be leaving out of this industry is the rural and the frontier folk. Right. And I think there might need to be an extra reach out to them to see this. And the reason I phrase that for my own selfish for this report, my in number, of companies like me was relatively small. Right. And I feel like if there was an additional reach out to some of those other cyber groups, we start showing some other trends in the industry as well, that based off your size and where you're located, security looks very different.
Yeah,
that's a really good point.
That's a really
good point.
Great point. I'm going to reach out to you afterwards and get some more thoughts on that, because as you know, the study in and of itself, we offer to the industry at no cost, so you can participate, whether you take advantage of all the other features on the benchmarking or you just want to participate in the study. So we would love to have more rural community participants in the study itself. So that's sort of an open request for others to join, if they could. And there are, we didn't really talk about this, but there are tools that we have to enable you to jumpstart, if you will, accelerate your completion of the overall surveys. And has anyone taken advantage of that? And I know we didn't talk about that. Was that useful with those? Because we do invest in those tools, so it'd be good to know whether or not that actually provided the level of value to you.
Yeah, I'll speak to that. Like I said, I know over the years, some of the jumpstart tools that I think we talked about year 1 or 2 or something like that. We said, man, it'd be great to have this added, right? And you guys were able to get it done. And so, I mean, like I said, once again, you guys have grown this into a really well-formed system. Love the way it operates. Your jump starts and stuff like that. Some of those things you guys have built in have been perfect for helping that, get stuff done. Because like I said, we're all busy every day, right? So anything where we can kind of get to a situation where we can have any of that added value that you can add is a positive. And I would say, back to like you said, we try to, Mitch and I try to socialize this as much as we can with everywhere we're at to make sure we're trying to get those more rural and suburban style health that are smaller. We want to get more people involved in this, because I think at the same time, it's nice for us to see it from the grandeur scale of, because usually you can get the big systems, right? Everybody's willing to jump on board. But when you try to the smaller ones, that's where they're more concerned about what's it going to cost me, what's this, what's that,
Right.
But if we could start seeing more data in this system, I think across that, I think that would really probably benefit you, Ryan, pretty well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, love it.
Yeah, we had, I think we've got currently 140 people, 140 systems right now that have been onboarded. Obviously they have to complete the study. So, we're still tracking to completions. And then of course we publish through the great work that the class research team does. We publish the analysis to the participants in a complete report. We also provide the executive summary generally to folks that are interested in seeing at a high level what the study showed. So any other last comments or considerations for folks from anybody?
No, sir. I've shared mine now.
No? Jen? No?
Good. Thank you.
All right.
It's been a great forum.
No, thank you for the conversation.
All right. No, I really appreciate your time. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Kevin, James, and Ryan for your time and participating in the benchmark study and sharing your journeys and the challenges, but also the benefits of participation in the study. Really appreciate you and your time.
Thank you.